Probably we should start by answering the questions while people are still joining. I will read a question from a woman. I am a single mother, and I have a 5-year-old daughter. I understand that my own actions brought me to this point. I am trying to change, yet I can feel that something is still missing. Otherwise, I wouldn't continue finding myself alone. A question from Greece, that's where I live. You see, in our society there are different layers. I don't mean the rich, the poor, and the middle class. I mean that there are 3 fundamental layers of life, and people in these layers live very differently. The first layer is the layer of degradation. In this layer, families almost never form at all. People in degradation are those involved in shadow businesses, drugs, or criminal activity. This is a criminal environment. The psychology there works like this. A person believes they can be happy only if they are strong and everyone else submits to them. That is the I am God concept. A person feels they must be better than everyone else and live for themselves. With this mindset of degradation, a person cannot build a family because their relationships are built on the principle of violence. No one wants to be subjected to violence. Naturally, no one can live alongside such a person. These families usually fall apart very quickly. The second environment is the environment of passion. In this environment, people are strongly focused on material growth and external success. Here, the concept of happiness is different. A person believes that they want to be happy, and they want to be happy while living next to others. But in reality, they want happiness only for themselves. The focus is still on personal happiness. They live for themselves. This is the concept of hidden egoism. A person in a state of passion sincerely believes they live for others, for their family, for everyone. But in fact, they live only for themselves. People in passion are strongly focused on the pursuit of external success. Their goal is an apartment, money, fame. They care deeply about their social status. Their life is heavily oriented toward acquiring something for themselves. Some pursue fame, others pursue money, others pursue success. But because they are not focused on their inward development, their relationships do not develop either. People in passion are strongly inclined to show off or pretend to be happy. They create an image of their life, both for others and for themselves. These people sincerely believe they are successful. They pretend to be successful, but in fact they don't even understand what real relationships are. A woman wrote a note saying, "I cannot build a family." This means she has not changed her underlying life concept. In the environment of passion, people also usually cannot stay together for long, because their relationships work like this. First, they create a family. Then they use each other for pleasure within that family. Since they don't understand what true love is, they mistake infatuation for love. They believe that they should use each other for pleasure and feel good together. They think that enjoying each other and feeling good together means we love each other. But that is not love. It is just a gift. People use each other for pleasure and enjoyment at the beginning of a relationship. This never lasts long, 2 or 3 years at most. That is why people living in passion usually start families quickly, have fun together, and when they get tired of each other, when it is time to actually learn how to love each other, they break up and go their separate ways. Moreover, the environment of passion doesn't even support real friendship. People in passion cannot even truly be friends. Most of the time, their friendships consist of going on trips together, spending holidays together, vacationing, or sharing hobbies. True friendship is a deep, heartfelt relationship where people share their inner realizations and meaningful reflections about life. People in passion are usually not inclined to open their hearts to others. They fear that someone, having learned something deeper about them, will then tell everyone. So people in passion have no real relationships. They are very lonely. They have no friendships, no relationships, no deep connections. They live in solitude. So how do people in passion meet? People in passion usually meet at restaurants, at work, and similar places. But people should meet in a temple, in some kind of spiritual environment, in a spiritual atmosphere, where the heart naturally opens. We have the Blagos festival, which takes place by the sea. 600 to 700 people gather there, constantly engaging in conversations about elevated topics and relationships. And people meet each other there because there is a guarantee that a person is striving for something higher. A good family can come from that. You see? There is also a pure goodness environment, besides the degradation environment where family is simply impossible at all, and the passion environment where it is difficult to meet a normal person. You never know what is on that person's mind. Because people who are not striving for self-development can start to degrade at any moment. A difficult period comes into their life, and the person goes downhill. This is why people often cannot build a family, simply because they are not in the right environment. Their consciousness does not function correctly. They are focused on the wrong things in life. And therefore there are no relationships, no culture of relationships. There is no real friendship. You might ask, where can I find people of pure goodness? There are many, but not that many. Most people on earth live in passion. 90%. There are also many living in degradation. The number of people living in degradation is now increasing. Many are drinking heavily, indulging in debauchery, using drugs, and so on. But people in pure goodness do exist as well. There is a good people club here. You can join, come, meet people, communicate, get married, and live a happy family life. In social media groups associated with my name, there are about 200,000 people in total. I think you will find the right person there, out of 200,000 people. Out of 200,000 people, that's a good selection. All right, it seems everyone has already gathered. I managed to answer one question. Maybe at the end of the lecture we'll answer some more. This is a very important lecture because the concept of what it means to be a woman in our modern society is becoming blurred. If the concept of man is still somewhat understandable, it is very hard to define who a woman is nowadays. It is very difficult to understand who a woman really is, because the very nature of a woman is beginning to fade away. A woman often takes on male roles and performs male functions. She acquires a male character due to the lack of proper upbringing. I will now explain why. A man in principle can raise himself. This is not a problem for a man, because he learns from his mistakes. A woman, however, does not learn from her mistakes. Mistakes cause psychological trauma for her. She is afraid to go in the direction where she once made a mistake. It is difficult for her to be there. Therefore, in ancient culture, great attention was paid to the education of women. For example, even in the 19th century, there were women's gymnasiums and institutes for noble maidens or similar institutions. This was necessary so that a woman could gain the qualifications to be herself. Because the main problem for people is that until the age of 25 or 30, they are simply trying to figure out how to live in this world. Not even to live normally. They do not understand at all how to live, because there is no education about life. We have education in mathematics, physics, accounting, management, law, and so on. There is no education about life. School doesn't teach us how to live. We do not know who a woman is. We do not study this in school. This is a big problem. But women have a remarkable ability to listen and change. A woman is highly qualified and very good at navigating the sphere she understands. But in the sphere she does not understand, she tries not to go there at all. A woman's psyche is strongly oriented toward learning and the ability to navigate within what she knows. Therefore, a woman has a strong ability to listen, especially if the knowledge resonates in her heart. Her ears perk up like little antennas, and she absorbs everything, and she immediately begins to apply it. She tries it in life, and she changes her life. I wrote my doctoral dissertation based on my lectures. There are some interesting points in that dissertation. The statistics show that 3 times more women attend the lectures, and they change twice as fast as a result of the lectures. In total, about 71% of attendees were women and 29% were men. And 71% of women changed their lives twice as fast as 21% of men. We conducted statistical research among the residents of Moscow and St. Petersburg, but things are not very different there either. Overall, everything is more or less the same everywhere. Women tend to obey, to listen, and change their lives very quickly as a result of knowledge. This means that women very much need knowledge in life. They lack what would give them the ability to understand how to live. They need to figure everything out. Since our society does not teach these things, women simply adopt the lifestyle that is presented to them. For example, let's take a look at the education we receive in school. It is mainly intended for a person's activity, for social activity. It is so from the very first grade. Are mathematics, physics, chemistry, and biology needed for family relationships? They are needed in order to work. All of this is needed for social activity. Someone will become a historian, someone a biologist, someone a mathematician. And from the very first grade, nobody knows who will become what. But people are given a general education that has nothing to do with family life. But speaking about the female psyche, 70% of a woman's happiness comes from personal life and only 30% from social activity. If a woman does not understand how to find happiness in family life, she cannot be fully developed. Even her hormonal functions do not work properly in the body because hormonal functions are connected, as we discussed yesterday, with the Ida Nadi channel, the feminine subtle energy channel on the left side of the body. And it functions only within close relationships, when a woman can be very close to her husband and her children, and she must put her energy into that. If a woman spends all day at work, she has no time to invest energy into close relationships with her children and husband. She cannot get closer to them because that requires effort. Relationships in a family naturally drift apart over time. If you don't work on them, they grow distant. You need to invest energy, and that means working less. But most women in our society have been taught that if they are not financially secure by the time they marry, then they have no protection in life. A woman believes she is protected not by her devoutness, not by her experience, not by her understanding of life that could give her a good husband, not by her faithfulness, but by her education and her job. She thinks, I have a job, I have money, I have an apartment, a car, so I am perfectly well protected because relying on a husband is pointless. Today he's here, tomorrow he's gone. From this point of view, there is some truth to it. But this grain of truth creates another imbalance, another problem. Look, for example, at how a marriage is formed. There are two categories of women. Some have experience in personal life and others have experience in work. This means that some have energy flowing on the right side and they develop masculine qualities. Such women become very independent, skilled in business matters and socially developed. They behave in society like fish in water. They direct all their feminine energy into public life. At home they dress simply, but they put on makeup when they go out. They behave in such a way as to achieve success at work, pouring all their energy there. What kind of husband do you think such a woman will end up with? Yes, a husband who stays at home and cooks. When she comes home, he will say, "Oh, I am so glad you came. I've been waiting for you."
What about Margaret Thatcher?
What about Margaret Thatcher? You know, that is the next question. Let's start with the basics first, and then we'll move on. We once had a TV show in Moscow. They brought up this idea there. There was a kind of debate ring. Some discussants would say, get married first, then get an education. And others would say, first study, then get married. We were among experts. Among the experts, there was a woman who led, at the time I do not know about now, the Committee of Mothers of Large Families of Russia. She was a very well-known, accomplished woman. She said that what she had absolutely learned in her life is that a woman must first firmly establish herself in her personal life. She must resolve her personal life issues. When a woman resolves her personal life issues, her energy starts to overflow. She has a lot of energy. If a woman is firmly grounded in her personal life, if everything is fine with her children and her husband, then she can develop socially, because a woman is naturally a very strong public figure. A woman has political savvy from the very beginning. She is a good politician. Any woman knows how to solve problems. She can quickly build relationships. Therefore, it is not difficult for a woman to become a leader in society. But there are two types of female leaders. Some are single, lonely, and unhappy, and they do not set a good example in life. Usually they make life worse for everyone around them. Take, for example, the cartoon about Carlson. There was this character, Frukenbach, remember? The house tormentor. This is not an image of a humble, easygoing wife. You can clearly see her character is rather fierce, and she came supposedly to educate the boy, but it turned out that the boy educated her. So a woman must be a woman. This is very difficult to explain, but it must be explained anyway, otherwise life will not become happy. Please don't interrupt me now, all right? I'm just explaining the basics. The first thing to understand is that the strength of a woman is not what it seems to be. Some women think, I am strong, meaning that they can step on anyone's toes, dominate anyone, or say anything they want to anyone. They think strength means being tough and pushing everyone aside with their elbows. That is not a woman's strength. A woman's strength lies in the ability to forgive, in the ability to be patient, and in the ability to accept. This is also strength. But what kind of men does this strength attract? Mature, strong, and masculine. Just imagine, would a self-respecting man marry a woman who shows off in front of him? Why would he need someone like that? If there are plenty of humble, kind women around, why would he choose a panther? A mature man chooses a humble woman for himself. A man with a strong character chooses a humble woman. There are also men who do not need a wife, but rather a mother. Love between a man and a woman is a rather selfish thing. A man thinks, wow, what a great woman, beautiful, plus an apartment, a car, and a good social standing. She has it all. He thinks, I will live very well and very comfortably with her. Such men are usually underdeveloped. They lack the willpower to grow on their own socially. They need to create a comfortable environment for themselves in life, and they find a mommy figure for themselves who might even be older than them. She has already failed to make it work with someone, has divorced, and then finds herself a man 10 years younger. And then the boy lives with her, but over time he becomes a man. And when he becomes a man, what happens next? He wants to find a young, humble woman. Why would he want to live with a panther? He simply leaves her, that's it. I'm telling you what I have seen many, many times in real life. This is not just some theory of mine. And the interesting thing is that a woman can change very quickly if she understands who she really is. Often women simply don't understand how to live in society and what their true advantages are. They don't understand their own strengths. For example, some women say, but what about me? I'm a manager in a team. How am I supposed to manage a team if I behave like a woman? Well, if you behave like a woman, you will manage your team 5 times more easily and without any strain. And you will easily manage your subordinates without any problems. Because a woman doesn't need to strain herself for that. In her nature, there is an innate ability to calmly resolve all issues through diplomacy. Diplomacy is an even greater strength than directive management. Diplomacy is a more effective form of management. Directive management means exerting pressure, and that always provokes resistance and leads to a conflict. But a woman can behave as a mother. She can say, for example, Mr. So-and-so, please do this and that. If you don't, we'll have to let you go. She says it very gently and kindly, without any tension at all. And she won't be the one to fire him. Her assistants will handle that. 2 big guys will come and say, what's the matter? Why are you not listening to our lady boss? And that's it. He's fired. Does a woman need to strain herself even to manage her husband? Does a woman need to strain herself to make her husband behave like a silk ribbon? Not at all. She just needs to understand the principle. And the principle is this. If you pressure a man, he turns into a rooster. You see, a man has 2 main functions in a relationship. The first function is to sacrifice himself. The second function is to fight for his dignity. So when a woman starts attacking or pressuring a man, what happens? His rooster instinct switches on. The rooster mode means fighting to the end for his dignity. You see, he simply cannot back down in principle. It's just not in his nature. He will keep fighting his wife to the bitter end. But it is impossible to overpower a woman because a woman's psyche is 6 times stronger than a man's. Here is an example of an argument between a man and a woman. The man says, what did you say? You are such a stupid woman. He screams at her with all his strength, using the last bit of his mental energy. She just looks at him like this and replies, you're the stupid one. She is not stressed at all. And then what happens? He can't handle the situation anymore. And it is at that moment a woman tells him, stop yelling. And as she speaks, her words go straight into his heart. The difference is that his words do not reach her heart. A woman's heart is protected, her emotions are very strong. But a man has a kind of hole in his emotional center when it comes to his relationship with his wife. So what option does he have left? He resorts to violence. Because there are no other options for him. Psychologically, he cannot be stronger than a woman, but he still needs to feel stronger. If a woman does not give in, what happens to the man? He has only 2 options, either break down and become weak or resort to violence. Why are you laughing? I am being serious. This is how a man's psyche works. Afterwards, he may not even understand why he did what he did, because if a woman resists a man, he loses his mind. At some point, he truly stops understanding what is happening because her psyche is stronger. At a certain point, his psyche begins to shut down. Once it shuts down, he ends up hitting his wife. And while doing this, at that moment, he does not even realize what he is doing. And afterward, it will hurt him even more than her. When a woman is being beaten, a protective mechanism activates. She stops understanding what is happening. She doesn't feel pain, she just scratches back. But afterward, the man will feel a lot of pain. He will truly feel that he has done something irreparable and terrible in his life. He will suffer greatly if he is a normal person. Well, if he's normal. If he is not normal, then a woman should live separately. So what is the idea here? The idea is that generally a woman must understand how to behave, because I've essentially taken that mechanism of attacking a man out of the picture just now. Then what should one do? The woman has no idea what to do. Here is the answer. A man has another function. If a woman shows even a drop of humility in a relationship, a man becomes very noble. Any man becomes very noble. Basically, to get all the money out of a man, his entire paycheck, and have him agree to almost anything, a woman does not need to put much effort at all. Yesterday, after the lecture, one young woman came up to me and said, "Dr. Torsunov, it really works." She told me her story. She simply cried a little, and her husband allowed her to go and buy what she wanted. Essentially, everything is resolved very easily. A man has a very generous heart. He is ready to give everything if he sees love, if he feels the energy of love in a woman, because then he has no defense at all. Therefore, a woman should manage the situation using a gentle, yielding approach. A woman's psyche outwardly is very gentle and compliant. How does a woman behave at work? She comes in and finds a common ground with everyone there. Is it difficult for her to do this? No, her psyche is very flexible. A woman even learns a foreign language quickly. She speaks a foreign language as if it's her native language. A man struggles all the time pronouncing everything awkwardly. Why? Because his psyche does not adapt to another language. A woman adapts easily. She orients herself very easily. Her speech immediately becomes correct. This happens because her psyche is very adaptable and flexible. She joins a new team, and boom, a week later she's already like a fish in water. She knows how to talk to each person, she knows how to behave. She has no problems with this, there is no tension at all. So why not use the same mechanism at home? It's a very simple system. For that, she must first understand why she needs it, because a completely different system operates here. The way we were raised, the way a woman was raised, what she saw in life, that is how she unconsciously behaves. Whatever picture she has formed in her mind, that is how she behaves unconsciously. But this is not what is needed. She must absorb a different approach. For a woman, especially if she does not have the right qualities for family behavior, it is very important to communicate with a woman who has everything good at home. She needs to find a friend whose home life is stable and good. She must watch how this friend behaves with her husband, how she speaks to him, how she resolves problems. When a woman absorbs this mindset, she can solve her own problems easily. Because in fact, family life is governed by the wife. A man cannot manage relationships. He has no sense of direction in them. He has an infantile nature when it comes to relationships. He cannot adjust himself to relationships. Besides, it is very hard for him even to understand a woman's character. A woman herself must show her character to him so that he understands it. She herself must teach him how to be in a relationship with her. A woman must teach a man how to behave with her, how to speak to her, and what to do. And he will learn it easily, gradually over time. So look, the technique is very simple. Try to feel this deeply. Inside, a woman is hard like a stone, while on the outside she seems soft. A man is the opposite. Outwardly he seems hard and inaccessible, but inside his psyche is very pliable. So what needs to be done? You have to break through his outer psychological shell and rigid masculine frame, and then you can shape him any way you like. You have to overcome this outer shell of hardness. There is a martial art called Aikido. When a person tries to strike, the one who practices Aikido uses the attacker's own force against them. This is an unbeatable martial art. Aikido masters don't do anything at all. They just stand there, that's all. The opponent has barely begun the fight and made the first move and immediately falls. Because the Aikido practitioner makes a movement that amplifies the opponent's own motion. The opponent simply loses balance and falls. There is no need to fight or struggle. They do nothing. Because there is no need to do anything. A woman needs to yield first. The tactic is always the same. The man starts to apply pressure. What should be done? A woman should immediately give in. Interestingly, all men, when they hear this, agree with this approach. Now, if you take a man and ask him, do you agree that a woman will give in to you when you demand something, but in the end things will still turn out the way she wants? All men agree, because the main thing for them is not to be tormented. What matters most is that no one tries to violate their principles. If a man says, that's it, no more spending money, we're going to save. What should a woman say? She should agree. Then the woman comes up and says very softly and gently, we need to buy a jacket for our child. A man usually replies, but we decided to save money. A woman continues, well, yes, we're saving, but this is a necessary thing for the child. And just like that, boom, the money for the jacket is there. Then the same thing can be done with a French perfume, right? Then something else comes up, including the necessary things. And just like that, the money is gone. But we were saving, we were trying, you see? We were trying, but it just turned out this way. The money ran out. And the man is perfectly fine with that. The main thing is that a principle is agreed upon. We are currently saving money for a car. We have such a goal, but for now it's not working out. And everything is fine, everyone is happy. The man has set a goal, and we are moving toward it as best we can. A woman doesn't need a goal. A woman needs her desires to be fulfilled in life. And for that, she needs to adopt a yielding approach. This is very difficult. It's like stepping into the abyss for a woman, because many women compete with men. They want to compete with men. Let's say a man puts on a tough, impressive front. The woman next to him acts tough too. Why? So as not to give in. God forbid he should be stronger than me. Women simply don't understand that he, in principle, cannot be stronger. All his strength is directed towards society. He is strong out there in society, but he cannot be strong in the family. A man has no strength in personal relationships. He is weak there. All his energy goes into social relationships. A man cannot be strong in personal relationships. There is no need to be afraid of him. A man is very weak in personal relationships. Once a secretary walks into the office of the President of the United States and sees the President playing with his grandson. At that moment, the secretary hands him a document and says, please sign this. The President had not signed this document for 3 weeks. No matter how hard the secretary tried, he couldn't get it signed. But this time the President signed it without any questions. Because at such moments he is not the President, you see? He is very weak in personal relationships. You can quickly explain something to him, convince him, and just like that, he signs everything immediately. A man has no power in personal relationships. But if you are not building a close relationship with him, if you stick to your principles, that is when his strength manifests. If you stand on principle, he will never give in to you, because a man's principles are stronger than a woman's. In a woman's heart, principles are stronger, but in relationships and in behavior, if a man takes a stand on principle, then there's nothing you can do, that's it. It will be brutal. Therefore, women must never argue with men on principled issues. If a man says, we're moving to a new apartment, the wife should reply, all right? Then she starts crying. The husband will ask her why. She will reply, I really like it here. I want to stay here in this apartment. All right, we'll stay here for now. And this for now can last for many years. The main thing is to take a direction toward a new apartment. So what is the idea here? This yielding approach is really about understanding male psychology as a whole, realizing that a man is tough and inaccessible only on the outside, while inside he is very soft and compliant. A man can change radically. For example, if a woman has been living with a man for 7 or 8 years, she starts to notice how much he has changed during that time. But a woman doesn't change one bit. That is why in the end a man always adapts to a woman. How is a family created in the first place? A woman adapts to a man. She must accept the living conditions of her husband and must accept his character. Then harmony arises in the family immediately. She has adapted to his character. She has accepted his living conditions. We have enough money, as much as you earn. I agree with your character. You have this kind of character. She accepts all this. She accepts and agrees, that's it. What happens next? Gradually everything becomes the way she wants it in her family life because he will always give in if she loves him. To love means to accept the living conditions, to accept his character. That means she loves him. And there is one more very subtle aspect of love. If a woman believes that she could have found someone better for herself, then he will start cheating on her. Because the entire atmosphere in the family is essentially woven from a woman's psyche, her mood is reflected in everyone around her. A woman possesses enormous power of influence. A woman is woven entirely out of influence. A man is woven out of actions. A woman is woven out of influence, therefore a woman does not need to perform actions. Does a woman approach a man to initiate contact? Does she make the first move? Let me ask the same question differently. Can someone a woman doesn't want to meet introduce himself to her? You see, everything is very simple. A woman is woven entirely out of influence. If she wants to meet someone, then the fish swims to the hook by itself. All a woman needs to do is cast her fishing rod. She is simply fishing. If the fish is big, how to catch it. We are talking about a serious man here. A big fish. How do you catch a big fish? One needs to know the technique. The technique is as follows. A big fish is very serious. That is, once it has swallowed the hook, you must not pull it. You have to let it swim wherever it wants and slowly, gently reel in the line. A man says, "We won't live together." A woman agrees, "All right, fine." They keep seeing each other. He says, "We won't register the marriage." She agrees again. All right. They continue seeing each other. And meanwhile, a woman reels the fish in. How does she reel the fish in? With love. But at the same time, a woman must not go to bed with him. If she does, the fish will pull her in. It will reel a woman in instead. She will end up falling into the river herself. She will end up in the river. Not that she will pull the fish out, but she'll fall into the river. If a man goes to bed with a woman, he no longer needs her. He has achieved his goal. That's it. After being intimate, a woman becomes strongly attached to a man. A man cools off toward a woman. She becomes uninteresting to him. That's it. He needs another one now. Therefore, a woman must keep her distance and gradually pull a man toward herself with her attractiveness, smiles, tender looks, speech, and conversation. When he has already gotten very close, she must always have a net nearby. Then she throws the net, hop, and he's caught. The net means to hold him to his word. For example, a man says, "Maybe we'll even get married." She looks at him and says, "What do you mean, maybe?" "I mean, we'll get married." That's it. And what should you say to him next? "Listen, you said that we would get married. Why haven't you filed the application yet?" That's it. She has caught him. Because a man cannot refuse his own word, he must keep it. Men should not listen now. I'm telling all of this for women. You see, in the end, a woman always gets everything the way she wants. There is no need to worry about that. But outwardly, a woman always yields. Let's continue. The next quality a woman needs to develop in herself is opening her heart to her husband. The thing is, if a man opens his heart, if he constantly comes home and talks to his wife about his co-workers and work, this is not interesting. A woman simply gets tired of this. A man should be reserved at home. He should be silent and responsible. When a man talks too much about his difficulties, a woman becomes disappointed in him. A man should not have difficulties. The wife asks her husband, "How are things going for you?" He should reply, "I'm doing well." She really likes it when everything is always fine with him, even if he has difficulties. He comes home all bruised, beaten up, all scuffed. "How are you doing?" "Everything is fine." Such a man is always appealing. A man who complains never appeals to a woman. A man should always remain calm. That means he is a good man, solid, strong, and reliable. But you see, the fact that a man is silent does not create closeness in relationships. Relationships don't become close because of that. They become close because the woman opens her heart to her husband. Opening her heart does not mean telling him about her ex-boyfriends. There is no need to share those details. It does not help. Such revelations destroy family life. Revelations mean opening the heart about their own relationship. She can say something like, "For some reason I'm still upset with you because of what happened yesterday." Or, "I feel that you are a very talented person." That is, opening the heart can be with a plus sign or with a minus sign, but it must happen kindly. When a woman opens her heart, what kind of relationship forms between a husband and a wife? Faithful relationships emerge. Because faithfulness is a quality of a woman, not a man. If a woman doubts a man even slightly, she thinks, "I probably chose the wrong person in life. I married the wrong man. I could have found someone better." How can you tell that she doubts him? She does not open her heart. She is closed and withdrawn with him. This means she has not fully made her choice. It means she has doubts. And what do these doubts do to the man? They make him unfaithful. If a woman is not confident in her man, then it becomes written right on his forehead. And to whom is that noticeable? To other women. A beautiful and bold woman may appear in his life. Relationships must be protected. A woman must know how to protect the relationships by opening her heart and by being confident that this is her one and only person. A woman must develop this confidence within herself to cultivate it in her heart. This is my one and only person. When a woman thinks this way, it binds the man's psyche, because a man's psyche cannot betray close people. He simply does not have the capacity to betray in his heart. But he can punish. A man can punish. If a woman is faithful, if she is truly sincere in her heart toward a man, then the man becomes very strongly magnetized by this sincerity, and he cannot tear himself away from her. In fact, this is exactly what a man is looking for in a woman. He is looking for complete devotion. When a man looks into a woman's eyes, what does he want? He wants her to look at him just like this, with complete devotion. When she looks at him like that, that means everything to him. He needs nothing more in life. If you think it's boring, that means you don't know how to handle him properly. You're using the wrong bait. A woman must be experienced in relationships. This is yet another quality of a woman. Experience. How should a wife smile at her husband so that he does not get bored? She knows how to do it for him. Some men need to be smiled at with a hint of disdain. And he's like, oh, he likes it. Well then, here you go, disdain. There are different ways to express love. A woman must know how to build a relationship with a man so that he is always magnetized to her and never gets bored. Remember the cartoon where all the rats were lured out of the house with a flute? The cartoon character played his flute like that, and the rats just followed along. This is exactly how a wife should behave with her husband. When he comes home, ding, the door opens and that's it. He follows her wherever she goes. That's it. She needs to tune herself in such a way that he has no chance to resist. Is this method clear? Women know this. They manage the energy of love. That is their power. From whom does love come? From a woman. And what comes from a man? Responsibility, knowledge, power, the ability to change, to influence, benefits, results, salary. When a man gets married, he kind of thinks, she's so delicate, so beautiful, so fragile. I'll marry her now and enjoy myself, enjoy being with her. Those are the man's plans. He doesn't know that this fragile, delicate, beautiful woman is very strongly attached to her parents. And together with her, he also takes her parents, who will get on his nerves. He also doesn't realize that small persons keep coming out of her. And those small persons also become his relatives. There can be many of them. He thinks he is taking just one person. Nothing of the sort. There is already a whole division there, and everyone has to be fed. That is why a man must be strong. When he takes a woman as his wife, he must be strong because she reproduces. And besides that, she is strongly attached to her relatives. He will have to work very hard to support such a source of pleasure. That's the problem. But he doesn't know this at first. He thinks it will just be enjoyment and happiness. But that is not the case. He will have to work a lot. So the next quality of a woman is experience, as I already mentioned. Experience means that a woman is a natural-born psychologist. A woman sees everything about a person, absolutely everything. She sees everything at once. She reads any person instantly. For example, when a man enters an apartment, what does he see? He sees a European-style renovation. That's it, he doesn't notice anything else. He sees something external. What does a woman see? Socks are in the wrong place. This here, that there, certain details. She notices every detail. For example, a man looks at me and thinks, all right, the man is 50 years old. He wears glasses. And what do women see? They see everything. They notice everything, the shape of the nose, the hairstyle, the glasses, every little detail. They immediately see whether the clothes are ironed or not. Nothing escapes them. A woman has a very attentive eye. She notices everything. A woman is a natural-born psychologist. A woman doesn't need to study psychology. Her understanding of psychology is already inside her from the very beginning. Take, for example, a 5-year-old girl and a boy. A 5-year-old girl already knows everything. Ask her, for example, how her mom and dad's relationship is. She will respond, I like it. What kind of family do you want for yourself? I want one just like that. She'll tell you everything. How many children will you have? She already knows everything she needs in life. The girl is 5 years old. She understands relationships. She knows how her grandma treats her dad. She knows everything, absolutely everything. Just 5 years old. Compared to a boy who is 5 years old. Are you hungry? Do you want to go for a walk? That's it, right? He doesn't have a good sense of what is going on. A girl, on the other hand, already understands everything that's going on. A boy doesn't understand any of it at all. Later, when he becomes a man, he starts to understand a little more, just a bit more. But a woman is already very experienced in life. She notices everything, knows everything, and understands everything. A man is thinking, I need to go up to that young woman. She's so pretty. I don't know how to approach her. And what is she thinking about at the same time? She is thinking, what an idiot. How long is he going to keep staring at me? It's time he came over already. She already knows everything, what a man wants, what a man is worried about. She has already understood it all. Ladies, that's right, isn't it? Yes, that's right. So experience is something a woman needs to develop and master. Experience in relationship with her husband. Experience means knowing her husband's weaknesses and vulnerable sides. Some men get tired of too much talking, some get exhausted by excessive emotions, and for some it is simply difficult to build certain types of relationships. Some men are quick-tempered or behave rudely, but deep down they have kind hearts, and so on. A woman needs to know all of her husband's weak sides. If you see that the conversation is going in the wrong direction, quickly steer it back on the right track, and that's all. Then there will be no problems. For example, you know that your husband comes home from work tense and angry. In that moment, you just need to hug him right away. The door opens, and you jump straight into his arms to hug him as soon as he walks in. He does not have time to get angry in this case. This is called experience. Then the next step is to take his hand and lead him to the bathroom to take a shower. A man needs to be trained to do the right things. For example, a man needs to be trained to wash up after work, to go straight to the shower first, then eat, and only after that do anything else, so that he calms down first. A shower and food calm a man down. First the shower, then food, and only then everything else. This is what experience means. An experienced woman behaves this way. She does everything in a way that maintains harmony. She uses her psychological abilities to resolve problems in the family. It is easier for a woman to forgive. I don't mean that she can forgive quickly. There are times when the conflict is very intense, when there is serious confrontation and deep discord. Sometimes a man reaches a point of no return. He simply cannot go back into the relationship anymore. In such moments, a woman must be the first to forgive through prayer and her inner spiritual work and bring the relationship back. Do you understand what I mean? A woman is more capable of yielding. It comes easier to her. Sometimes a man takes a hard stand on his principles and then it becomes very difficult for him to return. He simply cannot go back into the relationship anymore. A woman can. She has a softer, more flexible nature which makes it easier for her. Don't be afraid of this. It is harder for a woman to forgive quickly. She forgives slowly, but she forgives more deeply. A man forgives quickly, but a residue of bitterness often remains in his heart. When a woman forgives, she forgives completely. Her heart is more able to rebuild normal relationships again. That is why it is easier for a woman to go back into a relationship than it is for a man. For this reason, a woman needs to manage the situation. Of course, it is difficult for a woman to forgive immediately. She needs a few days. But when she does forgive, she is able to restore the relationship through her own inner strength. A woman should study how to make a family healthy. A woman is also the heart of her husband. A woman always senses when something is wrong in her husband's life. That is why it is important to know how to communicate to him what he needs to change in life. Guiding a husband is the weakest area in many women's lives. It is a woman's most sensitive spot, trying to guide her husband. The problem is that a woman often does not understand how his psyche works. She needs to study it. The psyche works like this. You should never speak to a man emotionally. His brain shuts down immediately because he cannot handle emotions. You need to say everything gently, softly, and calmly. And even when you say it softly and calmly, it may look on the outside as though nothing has reached him. My wife once read somewhere that the toilet lid should always be closed. Otherwise, they say, negative spirits dwell in the bathroom. And she started training me to close the toilet lid. I think it took her about 2 months. I personally don't fixate on whether it's open or closed. And she kept repeating the same thing to me very gently, over and over. Then one day I came out of the bathroom. I remember it very clearly. I walk out, and an inner voice speaks to me in a female voice. It speaks to me in my wife's voice, close the toilet lid. I go back, close the lid, and leave. And then something interesting happened. After that, I don't even remember closing it anymore. I close it, and I don't even remember doing it. I close it automatically. Based on my observations, to train a man or to change the direction of his mindset, you need to repeat something gently about 50 times. Around the 25th time, he will start to understand that this really needs to be done. Before that, he will say yes, but not give any importance. He will simply agree. At first, he may not even agree. He may even say no. Then he'll say yes, but still not do it. You need to keep repeating the same thing in a gentle voice. For example, please stop putting your socks on the refrigerator. Or better yet, tell him right away where to put them, where to take the socks and where to put them. Or take something like, don't walk into the kitchen with dirty shoes. It's better to say that shoes should be left in the hallway, you see? Give him a positive direction because negativity immediately triggers his defensive reflex. He starts to resist right away. The next important quality of a wife is the ability to inspire her husband. For example, you see that your husband is lazy by nature. In this case, you need to notice even the smallest signs of energy and liveliness in him. Let's say once a year he got up early. You need to remember that and say, look how great that was. Remember how you got up early? You did that brilliantly. A man needs to be showered with nice words. When a woman showers a man with harsh, cutting words, she destroys his life, because a woman is an inspiring force. Whatever a woman tells her husband, that is what he becomes. He doesn't even notice it himself. If a woman tells him that he is a poor provider, he will become a poor provider. If she tells him that he is lustful, he will become lustful. If she tells him that he is influential, he will become influential. But if she tells him, you don't earn enough, he will earn less. If she tells him, you are a developing person, right now we may lack a little money, but I know that in the future we will have more, because you are growing and developing as a person. You have a developing mindset. If she keeps telling him this constantly, what will happen next? He will begin to develop and grow, because a man sees his life and his fate through the eyes of his wife. A woman is the one for whom men change themselves. Especially quickly, a man changes when he is courting a woman. When a man is pursuing a woman, you can make him do anything. If he drinks, smokes, he's engaged in debauchery. Whatever habits he has, those are just habits. Don't worry. The main thing is, do not allow him to join his life with yours while he is still like that. You can truly change him completely while he is still courting you. You need to set conditions for him. If he truly loves you, he will change. But if you have already started living with him like that, that's it. Things will be very difficult from that point on. A man is like a steam locomotive, you see. You have to get him going, and it takes a long time to get him moving. But once he's moving in a certain direction, you cannot stop him. A woman gets inspired quickly. For example, she listens to lectures and enjoys working on herself. She enjoys living that way. But for her to live that way, she needs someone nearby who maintains the same lifestyle. She needs a man by her side who lives that way. Then she will also live that way consistently. A woman quickly gets fired up and then loses interest just as quickly. It is very difficult for her to maintain enthusiasm within herself. How should a woman behave while she is at the peak of her inspiration? She should use a very gentle, yielding approach to make sure her husband also becomes interested in what she is passionate about. For example, a woman should take care of her family's health. Everyone has their own way of maintaining health. For some people, running works well. For others, yoga is beneficial. Some benefit from breathing exercises, some from swimming, and some from fasting. A woman needs to sense what her husband should do to stay healthy. And then she needs to constantly inspire him to do that. For this, she herself must do the same things alongside him. For example, at first, for the first 6 months, the wife wakes her husband up a little earlier. How does she wake him up? She wakes him up very gently. Come on, let's get up and do some morning exercises. And she keeps waking him until he's finally awake. Let's say she wakes him up for half an hour every day. 6 months. After 6 months, he will be the one waking her up for the rest of his life. She can relax and take it easy after that. Once a man has developed a habit, he will follow it for a very long time, possibly for the rest of his life. That is why a woman is an inspiring force. A woman finds it very easy to become engaged with new knowledge. For a man, it is much harder because his mind turns very slowly. It is very difficult for him to change his life or accept new perspectives. Extremely difficult. That requires a lot of inner work and a lot of understanding on his part. A woman easily understands new things. Once she understands something, she should not think that she cannot influence her husband. If you want your husband to change quickly, is there anyone here who wants their husband to change quickly? Raise your hand. Women change quickly. A man is very firm, and his mind is very rigid. That's exactly what attracts you, ladies. That's exactly what you want, stability at home. You are constantly changing, while men cannot change at all. Externally, a man is very stable. His psyche appears very firm and unchanging. But internally, he actually changes quite quickly. If the right conditions are created for him, a man changes quickly. Quickly actually means gradually. Women don't really change on the inside. They change quickly on the outside, and then everything goes back to the way it was. With men, the psyche works differently. They need to change slowly. But after that, it doesn't go back anymore. He then starts pulling his wife along with him. You see, this is the tactic. You need to repeat the same thing many times calmly, without emotions. Gently, calmly, gently, repeating the same thing over and over. Is that clear? Gradually the man starts to change and adapt. It's not that he is unwilling, he is simply so deeply set in his own ways that it is very hard for him to change. A man is very strongly focused on one thing at a time. The female mind sees everything at once and manages it all. A man's psyche focuses on just one thing and is always set in only one direction. Here's an example of how a woman lives. Here a child is playing, there lunch is being prepared, over there laundry is being done, all at the same time. She senses and sees how all of this is happening, how everything is moving and functioning. Here is the husband, here is the child, over there her mother is sick, and she keeps track of all of it at once. Is that right or not? She knows everyone's birthdays and when to call whom. She knows everything. Where is a man's psyche directed? In only one direction. He pursues one direction in life. He has one specific goal, and he keeps hammering away at it until he breaks through. Can a woman keep hammering away in one direction? No. So she looks for other ways around it. A man always focuses on one point until he achieves the result. When he is focused on a single point, he does not see what is happening around him. He has no time for anything else. He sees only the goal. Is it clear? So you need to change the direction of the locomotive gradually. Little by little you redirect the tracks, and then you redirect them again. Then, after some time, he will be moving in a different direction at the same speed. And he will say, "Yes, actually, I always wanted to live this way." Later, the man will say, "I always wanted this myself." It was his wife who redirected him, but afterward he will say, "Yes, this is how I always wanted to live," or "I have always lived like this." In other words, a woman quietly manages the situation. It is very important for a woman to preserve her energy of beauty at home, within the family. If a woman openly exposes her body and shows it to everyone, she gives away her energy of beauty, the very energy with which she keeps her husband close and calms her children, which her parents and relatives love. That energy, the one that cements family life and holds it together, gets consumed by other men who simply pass by on the street. If she exposes her body, then everyone consumes her energy. When a woman's feminine energy is consumed, she actually enjoys it very much. At that moment, she very much enjoys being looked at and knowing that someone finds her attractive. She enjoys it very much. But when she comes home, because her energy has already been consumed, she has nothing left for her husband and her children, and she can no longer manage the situation. She comes home nervous, irritable, tired, and unable to do anything anymore. That is why, in ancient cultures, women did not openly expose their faces or their attractive features to strangers in order to preserve themselves and to remain strong and influential within the family. Some women are very influential at work and in public, but they are unable to influence their close relatives. Others are very influential in the family, and they are not overly concerned with how they are perceived at work. A woman's feminine energy needs to be directed in one direction. If it is directed everywhere, then the result will be exactly that. Through her behavior, a woman should regulate the intimate life of the family. If a family has adopted the habit of having sex every 5 minutes, the man becomes indecisive, mentally weak, irritable, angry, cruel, and harsh. He becomes prone to harmful habits. He starts deceiving, he becomes irresponsible, and loses all his positive qualities when he becomes excessively preoccupied with sex. He wastes all his good fate. That is why a woman should regulate sexual relations in the family. She must make sure sex does not turn into a habit. Every woman senses when it becomes too much. She needs to regulate this sphere because a man cannot regulate it. A man is always drawn to a woman. He is always striving toward her and seeking to possess her. A woman needs to know when to step back and when to create limits. Monitoring the health condition is also necessary. Even the man's health deteriorates and he starts to get sick. Look at the man's health condition, his mental strength, and what is happening. When intimacy becomes excessive, these relations need to be limited. A woman also suffers from excess. She starts to feel unclean. When intimacy becomes excessive, a woman's mood worsens. She feels internally unclean, as if she has been befouled. She starts to get nervous. She starts to argue with her husband. Her mood deteriorates and it becomes very difficult for her to maintain inner calm. Everything starts to irritate her. This is a sign of excess. These are considered the woman's responsibilities. A mature man can control himself. But such men are few and rare. Most men are not capable of this. Is it clear how this works? A woman controls the situation. A man manages the situation in society. A woman manages the situation in her personal life. How does she do it? Quietly, without anyone noticing. An experienced woman arranges things in such a way that no one feels disadvantaged, while at the same time makes sure her own personal interests are respected. If the situation is such that a wife is living together with her mother-in-law, then the younger woman must subordinate herself to the interests of the older one. She must do everything the way the mother-in-law wants. Otherwise, there will be neither peace nor happiness in the family. Two women cannot live in the same apartment as equals. They must occupy different levels, otherwise they will not have a normal life. If two female friends decide to live together in one apartment in order to save money, they will destroy their relationship, possibly forever. Two women cannot live in the same apartment. 40 men can live in one apartment without problems. Two women cannot. Why can't they? This is because women mark their territory. A woman's selfishness is very strongly oriented toward the structure of space. A woman herself creates the structure of the space. She needs everything to be arranged exactly the way she wants it. Imagine this. She comes into the kitchen, arranges everything the way she wants, and marks the territory. Then her friend comes in and rearranges everything in her own way. She comes in, looks around, and it feels like chaos. She thinks, I just cleaned up. But in fact, it's not a chaos at all. Everything is in its right place. Just from the friend's point of view, a war begins. How does it end? It ends in a bloody battle. Is it clear? It makes sense, doesn't it? Through her strength, a woman carries 7 fundamental qualities that change her husband's life. If a woman behaves correctly, her husband becomes an influential person. If a woman is able to communicate with a man very gently and tenderly, the man becomes very influential. He sees no obstacles in his life. If a woman prays at home, creates an altar and makes her home clean and spiritual, this brings her husband good fortune. If there is an altar in the home, not a television in the central place, but an altar, and spiritual music sounds at home, this brings good fortune to the man, because God lives in his life. Through gentle and soft communication, a man acquires refined speech. If a wife speaks very gently and softly, the husband adopts those qualities as well, and he becomes able to come to an agreement with everyone. He has no problems. If a woman does not traumatize her husband's psyche with excessive emotions, the man develops a good memory. Positive impressions from life at home, from the environment in which a man lives, give him a very vivid and strong memory. If a woman is the heart of her husband, she always very gently and respectfully hints at what needs to be changed. She hints at something very politely, and many times if necessary. For example, this job is not suitable for you. It is dangerous for you to work there. Many times she can protect him from dangers and make him a prudent and reasonable person. A woman makes a man more prudent by giving him the power to make decisions. A woman should first shape how things ought to be, and then give the man the opportunity to make the decision. Because if he makes a different decision, she will still resist and protest against it. First, a woman should show a man how she wants things to be, and then give him the opportunity to make the decision. Because when a man makes a decision, it becomes law. When a woman makes a decision, everything can change. When a man makes a decision, everything becomes set in stone. It becomes law. A woman who inspires her husband toward good deeds makes him goal-oriented. If a woman is faithful to her husband, the man develops patience. He becomes able to tolerate her emotions and her character. If a woman behaves faithfully toward her husband, the man becomes patient. He can forgive her emotions because he sees her essence. If his wife loves him and is faithful to him, if she opens her heart to him, if she apologizes, if she loves to apologize and ask for forgiveness, a man becomes patient. I think you are probably tired of my speech, which, as someone once wrote about me on the internet, a bit nasal and plain. Your questions, please. Questions about women, all right? Please ask questions related to the nature of women only.
Please tell me, how can one replenish this energy for an active sex life?
Active? Why do you need an active sex life?
It is believed that family is created for exactly that purpose.
That's impossible. This is the biggest problem. People do not understand that a family is not created for their sex life. This is the problem of the culture we live in. Our culture says that sex holds a family together. We believe that if the sex is good, the family will stay together. This is nonsense. Why? Because sex can never be good for long. Sex always has a diminishing nature. At first, people find great pleasure in each other, but gradually they get used to one another, and it all fades away. Sex is a bait, you see. The bait cannot last a lifetime. At first, people are attracted to each other purely sexually, but then, as life goes on, they must gradually elevate their relationship. And when the relationship is elevated, the base manifestations of the relationship are no longer the priority in life. If this doesn't happen, people simply grow tired of each other. Why are 80% of marriages ending in divorce in our country today? Because the concept of family life is wrong. People sincerely believe in this Freudian fable that sex drives the world. This is complete nonsense. Sex is the most powerful energy in the world. But the world is driven by spiritual power. The soul moves the world. We are souls by nature and we need spiritual relationships. Therefore, when people gradually develop depth in their relationship with each other, not purely animal desires, but genuine depth in their relationship, their families become very strong and solid. This is not an easy truth to come to terms with. But people who are focused only on sex and want more sex inevitably end up destroying their family, because they ultimately become repulsive to each other.
Men have such an instinct.
A man is not a monkey. The idea that a man is a monkey is also an illusion. This is the kind of instinct a man has at first. But if you perceive a man as a monkey, he will eventually go after another monkey because this one gets boring quickly. He will look for the next one. The spiritual nature in a man must be developed. A woman must elevate her family. She must lead it not downward but upward. One should not think about how to make sex more sophisticated. This ultimately leads to sexual perversions. Sexual practices exist that you couldn't even imagine. Masochism, sadism, and all sort of other forms. The idea that sex controls us ultimately leads to sadism. What is sex? It is the desire to possess a woman's body. You see, essentially, sex is the desire to exploit a woman's body. And the further it goes, the stronger it gets, you see. All of this ultimately leads to sadism and abuse of a woman's body. If we strive to make sex more refined, it will sooner or later lead to sexual perversions. This is inevitable because people cannot enjoy the same sex their entire lives. Sexual desire fades in relation to a person. At first it has a very strong nature, very intense. Then gradually people get used to each other. It becomes a mechanical process, no longer as fulfilling. And this always holds true in our lives. For example, if you eat the most delicious honey every day, what happens? It becomes an ordinary product, tasteless, not as delicious anymore. It becomes an ordinary product. The most fragrant, delicious honey gets tiresome after a week, maybe two. It's the same with sexual relations. There is no difference whatsoever. Everything gets boring eventually. But in our hearts, we hold on to the belief that this won't happen in our family. It will, without a doubt. A reliance on sex, when people put their faith in sex, leads to madness. Men start taking all kinds of stimulants and so on. And all of this in the end leads to the exhaustion of the sexual organs and impotence. The man becomes la la la, you see? That is the result of such an aspiration.
Should a woman play spiritual music at home?
Yes.
To create an atmosphere. But what if the husband is not home at that time? Will it still have an effect?
It will. The atmosphere remains. Even if spiritual music is playing when no one is home, it still has an effect. You come into someone's home, and you can feel the atmosphere. You do not know what had been happening there before, yet you feel the atmosphere. Some homes you can't even enter. They smell terrible. You can't even step through the door. But when you enter another home, it feels as if you've walked into paradise. It depends on what people do there. If people have elevated interests at home, the atmosphere there is pure and sublime. You don't want to leave. A question from a note. Thanks to the lectures, I was able to improve my family relationships. This is very unusual. This is a real achievement. For 6 months, my husband was ideal in every way. However, at some point, it all came to an end. Everything suddenly turned bad. How could everything change so abruptly? Good question. You are asking about life's periods. There are different astrological periods. There are periods of trials when life becomes very difficult for a person. Sometimes it happens that the planets begin to exert such an influence that a person finds life very difficult. Their fate suddenly changes for the worse and life becomes very difficult for them. This can happen within a month and then last for several years. Everyone should know about this. This also applies to personal life. For example, sometimes a person's heart grows cold toward a loved one, and it feels like we can no longer be together, that there is no love. This can last for a year or two, then everything recovers again and goes back to normal. But the family is already destroyed. Because people do not understand that this comes in cycles, they simply break the relationship, whereas they just needed to be patient and endure. This is always very clearly seeing in one's own experience. Who here is currently feeling coldness toward their loved one? Raise your hand. Is there such a person? Look, this is exactly such an astrological period for you now. And you are right, it is already coming to an end. It started about a little more than a year ago, about a year and 3 or 4 months ago, and gradually intensified. About 4 or 5 months ago, you reached its peak. Now this period is declining. In about 4.5 months it will end, and you will feel warmth toward your loved one again. Have you noticed that things are a little better now than before? Worse? That means your faith is fading. You are losing faith. If you had known that such things happen and that you just need to wait, you wouldn't have lost your faith. It feels worse because you expect the same as before, but nothing is there.
And how do you restore faith?
Good question. Faith is restored through victories, through achievements. And you are now asking a very profound question. That means you need depth. All right, I will now tell you deeper things. Before, I spoke about behavior. Now I will speak about the most important thing. In reality, human relationships reside in the heart, deep inside. If we speak honestly, hand on heart, most people have absolutely nothing deep inside for each other. Nothing at all, just emptiness. They simply use each other for pleasure, that's all. There is no depth whatsoever. This is very easy to prove. Now close your eyes and remember your loved one. You may have 3 types of memories. The first type is when you cannot remember anything. The second type is when you remember grievances or hurts. The third type is when you remember them as a pure, radiant person who came to you as a reward according to your fate. Most people who have lived together for more than 5 years do not think of their close person as a reward. This means that you have never really built a relationship. If you cannot remember them at all, or only remember them in a physical sense, it means you don't know who they really are. You have no heart-to-heart connection. There is only a relationship based purely on pleasure, on enjoying the person. There is no true closeness. It is close relationships that give rise to fidelity and respect. In fact, the very first stage of developing a close relationship is simply the ability to accept another person. When a person truly works in their heart to build a relationship, this becomes an inner life. It is like prayer, it is not easy. During prayer to a holy person or to an altar, you should bow and try to feel the purity of your loved one. You should try to feel their soul. The soul means something pure and bright within a person. The soul never has bad character traits. It is always woven from the very best. Why does a mother love her child? What do you think? When a child is born, karma does not yet affect them. It is karma, or negative events and character traits, that later obscure what is pure and bright in a person. When a child is born, they have no karma. It does not affect them yet. And the mother sees the purity of her child. She sees how pure and radiant her child is. She remembers this feeling for the rest of her life. And even if later in life the child kills someone, she does not believe that her child is a murderer. She remembers her child as a pure person. A mother's memory is never befouled. That is why a mother always sees her child as good. Do you understand what I'm talking about? This is called spiritual vision. The same thing happens when people meet. A priest was once asked, "How can we restore our relationship?" He replied, "Do you want a deep answer or a superficial one? We want a deep one." The deep answer is this: remember what you saw in your loved one on your first date. How that person looked, how they behaved, how they spoke, how they carried themselves. Remember the person that way and try to hold that image in your memory. During prayer, try to restore this feeling of purity, because at the first meeting, God reveals a person's soul. As one song says, "This is my first earthly love, the morning of my eyes." I don't know you at all yet. I see you for the first time. That feeling of purity is not ours. It is a divine power that opens for us what should later be. In marketing, there is a rule called a demo version. Try it, then buy it. You see how it works, and then you pay. Exactly the same kind of demo version exists in relationships between people. First, the Lord reveals everything best in a person and shows it. And then He closes it. And now, try to build your relationship in such a way that this person's soul opens to you again. Sex won't help here. You need to build a soulful relationship. In your heart, during prayer, you need to learn to see purity in your loved one, to feel that purity, and to rediscover it. If you look at a woman while remembering her as you saw her the first time, you will actually see how her face changes, how her gaze changes, how her attitude toward you changes. She will feel that you know her, that you understand her. In the same way, if you look at a man as you saw him the first time, he will too feel that you understand him, because a person feels themselves exactly the way you saw them the first time. This is how they always feel about themselves. They relate to themselves as to a soul, and they feel deep sorrow when others fail to understand them that way. But we do not open ourselves as souls to other people. Only holy people do, because they have a very strong focus on the spiritual. Before them, all people open up as souls. When a person looks at a holy person, everything pure and bright within them is immediately revealed to the eye. That is why holy people have very deep, elevated relationships with everyone. But an ordinary person is not capable of this, because when we look at another person, we collide with their karma and we feel pain and fear. That is why people are afraid of one another. So what is the purpose of family life? It is to learn to see the soul in another person. This is possible only through inner life. In order to see the soul, one must use the method of analogy. You need to take into your heart the image of a holy person as an example of how a soul looks in holiness, and through that feeling toward them, develop your feeling toward your loved one. Remember purity and holiness, and then cultivate that same purity in your heart, in your relationship with your loved one. And then the ability to preserve love appears. You have just now heard the answer to the question you asked me. True love is not a cheap thing. The first stage of this love is the feeling of purity. It gives you the ability to accept your loved one. To accept doesn't mean tolerate or endure. It simply means to accept. This is how they are, and that is good. That's all right. To accept. This means that you come home knowing that you will find rest there. Not argue, not fight, not sort things out, not wage war, but to rest. Acceptance is the first drop of love in a relationship. Love is not pleasure. Love is not sex. Love is the ability to care for a loved one. Love is woven from selflessness. It is spiritual energy. But we can also use the energy of love in a different way. We can exploit it. The second drop of love is respect. When a relationship between a man and a woman deepens, they begin to see more purity in each other. Respect arises. You begin to feel something extraordinary from the other person. That love which was there the first time begins to be renewed. It starts to return. The next drop of love is called faithfulness. I never want to be without this person. I always want to be with this person. And the fourth, the deepest manifestation of love, which is rarely accessible to people in this world, is sincerity. When people become truly sincere with each other, their hearts unite. Their hearts live together as one whole. A rare case. This is already a spiritual level. This is already holiness, a holy family. Such people become mentors for everyone. They can already teach others how to live. Next question, does a woman always have the moral right to adopt a child? Always. After all, if she has no children of her own and is not married, then it would seem she is not meant to have them. This is nonsense. To say that by adopting a child she would only ruin the child's life is also nonsense. Nonsense. You see, there is such a concept as stinginess of the heart, which indicates that a person remains alone. A woman should not live alone. When she lives alone, she loses herself. I have seen many examples when a woman simply cannot get married at all. No one pays any attention to her. Her feminine energies do not work. She doesn't know how to activate them. She seems to care about everyone, her friends, her parents. She takes care of everyone, but that beauty never lights up in her face. She adopts a child thinking, well, that's it. It's impossible for me otherwise, but I want children. She adopts a child and becomes a mother to that child. And what happens to a woman when she becomes a mother? Her feminine energies begin to blossom. As soon as these feminine energies begin to blossom, what happens next? People begin to notice her. She later gets married. Then she may also have her own children as well. It seems as if everything is the opposite, as if adopting a child means staying alone. That is nonsense. Now, suppose she has no children. Suppose she is infertile, for example. She could not cure her infertility. She should take a child to raise, and that child will be her child. You might say, how can a child be mine if they are not biologically mine? But this is already a misconception of society. There is a widespread belief in society that if you take a child to raise, they will never truly be yours, that they remain someone else's child. That's complete nonsense. In ancient culture, it was always believed that if a woman raises a child, that child becomes her own, truly her own. When a man and a woman get married, do they become family or not? Then why can't a child become your own if you live with them and they consider you their mother? It is wrong to think that if I gave birth to a child, then that child is mine. And if someone else gave birth to a child, then that child cannot be mine. A child should also be told that people are mistaken when they say such things. You are my own child and I am your real mother. A mother who gave birth to a child and abandoned her child cannot be called a mother. A mother is the one who raises the child. A mother is the one who invests her love. A sense of kinship arises from the energy of love. People become family through the energy of love. Sometimes relatives quarrel with each other, hate each other, and take each other to court. They are not truly family, even though they share the same bloodline. They are not family. And sometimes people who are not related at all are such close friends that they become like family. And in fact, they are family. Family bonds arise from love.
What if I don't want to get married at all, even when someone proposes?
Not wanting to marry is a misconception. A misconception. I will explain why.
Can't one build relationships without marriage?
Without marriage? Like monkeys? No. Deep relationships mean sacrifice. Sacrifice means marriage. Because if you build a relationship with a man without marriage, it means he is exploiting you. Why would he need you? What is he going to do with you without marriage? What's the purpose?
It is very important for a man, right?
What is important? That is important for a woman, not for a man. For a man, what matters is to be able to use a woman. You are the beautiful one, not him. What does he need from you? Sex?
At first, a husband only wants sex.
You see, a man does not deeply understand what love is. He simply wants to enjoy a woman. He just wants sex. He needs sex. And what does a woman need?
Love. A home and love within it.
Love in the home, so that means family.
So why doesn't it work out for me?
It does not work out? You can't accept it? You will be able to now. If a person cannot accept something through logic, then they accept it through fear. I'll explain now. A woman gradually loses her beauty as she ages, and beauty is everything in a woman's life. If a woman loses her beauty, she becomes unnecessary to everyone, except those who have seen her soul. Therefore, before a woman loses her beauty, she must not only create a family but also establish within that family such relationships where people begin to build very elevated, close connections with one another. She must also have children who will see her soul.
I have no fear.
Soon you will, because you are aging. Why are you aging? Because everyone ages.
We all age, but we can live our lives in such a way that...
A woman's life depends on how attractive she is. If a woman loses her beauty, no one needs her. If no one needs her, there is no life. You will be of no use to anyone. You'll walk around, smile, and no one will care. And what then? Then it will become scary. Then you will be scared, but right now you are not. That means you are being foolish.
Yes, I am like that.
You say, yes, I am like that. You need to hear me now, to really listen, because there's a reason you asked me this question. You asked me this question so that I convince you that you need to get married. Otherwise, why would you ask me? You were just living your life the way you wanted. But you asked. That means your heart is saying, Dr. Torsunov, please do something with me so that I want to get married because time is already passing. My youth is being wasted. I must give it to someone, otherwise I will be unhappy. There are two ways to be happy, either through knowledge or through fear. One of the two. Then study how to live. You are a reasonable person.
I am studying.
Keep studying and gradually you will understand that you need to get married. You don't want to get married because you feel that it is difficult. You don't want difficulties, you want to simply enjoy life. I know many women who later regret this deeply. When a woman is young, she simply enjoys life. She thinks, why struggle? Why do I need this family? Why suffer there? I'm beautiful, everyone wants me. But this ends. When beauty ends, what comes next? Loneliness. Nobody wants her. She did not use her beauty for its intended purpose, because a woman's beauty is given for two things. The first is to attract a man. The second is to give birth to children. That is what beauty is for. When this is fulfilled, a woman lives calmly and no longer worries. Your question, please.
What if there is a fear of having children?
Then adopt a child, or conceive a child. Look, it's all very simple. I'll explain now. A woman's psyche is very sensitive. Sometimes this sensitivity is so strong that she is incapable of taking a step. That is why in ancient culture there was always a rule. If a woman could not take a step herself, elders helped her to take it. For example, a woman cannot get married because she is afraid. Then she is simply taken by the hand and told, that's it, go and get married. It's easier for her that way. Dr. Torsunov said so I must get married. And she gets married. She trusts the elder. A woman is capable of trusting an elder. She says, Dr. Torsunov said I need to get married. That's it, I'm getting married and I'm not worried about anything. But deep in her heart, she doesn't yet feel it. You see, a woman's psyche works quite differently than it might seem. Many women, when they get married, don't feel at all that this is a close person. But they get married because they see that this is a good person. And what happens next? They live together for some time and he becomes close. A woman cannot immediately feel close to someone. She needs time. For this reason, women were always advised by their elders to do the following. First, simply conceive and give birth to a child, and then the desire to be a mother will come naturally. You need to believe that this is so, that it always works this way. You need to trust the elder, and then it will work. The other person may be the best in the world, but it is impossible to see that right away. One snowflake is not yet snow, one raindrop is not yet rain. This is how a woman's psyche works. It works slowly, and it's hard to understand what is right. In some simple matters, it works quickly. But when it comes to making serious decisions, a woman needs time. Still, you must move in this direction because time is passing. You only have about 2 years left to enjoy yourself. Yes, personally you. In 2 years, a period of loneliness will begin. Right now, you can get married easily without difficulty. But in 2 years, loneliness will come. I can prove this to you. Between the ages of about 18 and 20, you already had such a period in your life. You felt lonely, and there was no one around. Then there was a long period when many different people were around you. And now it seems to you that it will always be like this. But it won't. Know that you need to hurry. That is why you asked me. This is a sign from God, a gift to you from God. That means that God is telling you, it's time to end this philosophy. Yes, I understand. Yes, you have just been proposed to. For the last time. I'm listening.
What if there are no feelings toward the person? Is it still worth marrying him?
Yes. The feeling will appear. Feelings arise as a result of caring for another person. When you begin to care for someone, that person becomes dear to you. You see, there are two types of feelings. There is the feeling of enjoyment, attraction, magnetism, sexual desire, passion. There can be a strong attraction between people. Magnetism and attraction are signs of compatibility. But sometimes it happens that people's lower centers are not too active. In reality, they are not that important in life. When people create a truly strong marriage, their relationship develops differently. Look, when people start their sexual life very passionately, what does that mean for their relationship? It means that later there will be intense jealousy, strong possessiveness, dependence, a desire to control the other person. Animalistic instincts arise. Such people usually can't handle it for long. Their life resembles a dramatic Brazilian soap opera. They often divorce because they can't handle it. But when people create a family differently, their relationship is based on shared interests, on a common desire for development and self-improvement. They date for a long time, communicate, and gradually get used to each other. There is an incorrect development of relationships, first sweetness, then bitterness. And there is the correct one, first bitterness, then sweetness. What is bitterness? Every person is egoistic, everyone is selfish. Even if you have found a good person, first you need to get to know them, communicate. It is very difficult to understand a person, difficult to accept them. Then you've accepted each other, and a happy life begins. But people who rush straight into a sexual relationship soon collide with reality within 6 months. They suddenly realize that they still need to talk, to get to know each other. They already live together. And they discover they barely know the other person. You see, sex is not yet a reason to get to know each other. So basically, people spend 2 years just enjoying themselves, and now they have to start talking, figuring out how to live together, how to manage money, and so on. Many problems arise, and it turns out people have nothing in common. They turn out to have no real compatibility in life. That is why, at the beginning, you need to keep distance. First, you must build a relationship. Is it clear? A little bit, right? A little bit. So look, when does a stable family arise? People meet, communicate, get to know each other, get used to one another, and a relationship develops between them. Then people begin to care for each other and love arises. Love is not passion. Passion is about infatuation, which passes. Do you want to fall in love? That's all right. People want to fall in love. Wanting it is normal. It happens in every family. Now I will explain the rules. Infatuation comes in 2 categories. The first category is spontaneous love, sudden infatuation, the kind everyone strives for. And this is a mistake, because this spontaneous infatuation fades just as spontaneously. How many times do you need to try before you understand that this is how it works? People often think, with the next one it won't fade, with the next one it won't. All the songs are about this.
Men fall in love often, and often leave women.
There are 3 types, 3 levels of understanding. There is understanding in degradation. Let everyone else work, I wasn't born for that. This is a kind of truth, but it is understanding in degradation. There is understanding in passion. Happiness is not in money, it's in the amount. This is also a kind of truth, but it is understanding in passion. And there is understanding in pure goodness, which is also true. Happiness is not in money. Period. Do you understand? All 3 are true. What you just described is an understanding rooted in passion. All men tend to leave women. That's true. But this is not an absolute truth. Where is the misunderstanding? The misunderstanding is that a man reflects a woman. A woman is the object of love, and a man is the one who pursues her. Since a woman carries the energy of love, everything depends on what kind of love she offers. A woman's love exists on 3 levels. If a woman offers only physical attraction, if she herself is oriented only toward that, then inevitably the man will leave, because this kind of love always becomes boring. The second type of love is human love, the kind of love I'm talking about. This type of love is about acceptance, respect, fidelity, sincerity, a human type of relationship. On this level, love never ends. It possesses an enormous power of attraction. If, for example, you want fidelity in your family, if you want a family, not just sex, but a close relationship, if you want morality, purity, and elevation in your family, then a man will relate to you exactly the way you want. He is a reflection of your understanding. A man lives by the love that lives within a woman. If the wrong kind of love lives within a woman, the man lives by the wrong kind of love. A woman attracts the kind of man who desires a certain type of love. If a man seeks sex, he is drawn to a woman who can offer that. If he wants a family, then he is drawn to a woman who wants a family. Thus, whatever your values are, that is the kind of partner you will attract. And the third type of love is inaccessible to people. It is divine love. This type of love nourishes everything a person has in life. If a person has a relationship with holiness, then power, good fortune, intelligence, determination, enthusiasm, strength, and influence come to them. Everything one can dream of in life comes to them through that relationship with holiness and elevated realities that are difficult to access. This can only be transmitted from one person to another. In life, this is called spiritual initiation or simply initiation. This is a mystery for people. You see, when we come into contact with sublime purity, it becomes the greatest driving force in human life. When a person even slightly touches holiness, they change. They become capable of changing everything in their life. This is why the most important thing a person should strive for is holiness. It is difficult to attain, but it changes one's entire life profoundly.
And what does it mean to come into contact with holiness?
It means to serve a holy person. This service can exist only in one's heart. That is, to take an image of a holy person, or sacred scripture, or perhaps soil from a holy place, and begin to bow and venerate. I want to feel your purity. I want to be like you. I want to follow your guidance. I want to live your life, not my own, but yours. When a person asks in this way, they receive it in their heart. They receive grace in their heart. This is called inner life, which we have forgotten. When a person lives such an inner life, their entire life changes. It becomes like a flower, it gives fragrance, and this fragrance is passed on to others as well. So it is important to understand that even in human love there is infatuation. When people develop heart-based relationships, mutual attraction also appears between them. Even elevated people have children. They first develop elevated feelings for each other, then family life follows naturally, including intimacy. This is normal for people. There is no need to worry that attraction will not appear. Attraction arises naturally between people when they care for each other. It arises when they build very deep relationships. This is natural for human beings. It is not something to be concerned about. Some people think, if I didn't feel an attraction right away, I never will. But if you feel a person's inner purity, you will naturally feel attracted to them. Some people build all their relationships on the principle of sex. And when they feel some kind of incompatibility, they try to do something with their bodies. This is pure materialism. It means that people do not understand how relationships are built, they do not understand how life is built. In reality, when people connect soul to soul, everything else becomes compatible. They are able to align with each other in all other aspects of life. This is not a problem for them. The problem is that people simply do not feel one another, which is why they cannot build close relationships.
So now you're suggesting to a woman that simply based on good impressions and feelings that this is a good man, she should go ahead and marry that man, and everything else will come naturally later.
Yes, of course.
You know, I must be a complete exception then, because probably due to my illness, I did not want to get married at all. I was 24 years old. I got married. We had an excellent, positive, spiritual, and friendly relationship with my husband. But when the children grew up, I realized that there had never been any love.
Love is linked to spiritual life within a family. Where there is spiritual life, there will be love. Did you have a spiritual life in your family?
Actually, we did.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I will never believe that. I know thousands of other examples where people develop spiritual relationships within a family, where there was nothing between them at first, and yet very deep feelings emerged. What you are telling me, that I feel bad with this person, is a form of befoulment. It reflects a materialistic view, not a spiritual feeling.
It did not feel bad with him.
Now it does. That means your relationship has been befouled.
It became uninteresting.
Not interesting means there is no depth in the relationship. Love is never uninteresting. You need to study this. That means you're missing something.
But you know, I have been living with a man I love for 5 years now.
Now it's clear. So you left your husband and now your philosophy has changed. And now you're telling me about it.
No, I'm asking because it turns out that I got married without being in love.
You got a little confused. Let's not continue discussing all of this because you are now trying to impose something on me in this conversation in order to justify yourself.
That's for this woman, but is it right for her to get married if she doesn't want to?
Let's not discuss this woman right now. Don't do that.
All right.
Because you are now having a very fateful conversation. You are now destroying her faith in what I want to tell her. I am doing this based on knowledge. You are simply applying your personal experience to the situation. And personal experience is not always the basis for knowledge. Because I have been studying relationships for 20 years and I know what is right and what is not right. So it turns out that people who share the same values, even if they are initially not attracted to each other, can still build a family. The only rule is that they should walk the path of spiritual life together so that they develop a very deep relationship based on a sense of duty. When people begin to care for each other, they gradually develop attachment and very deep feelings.
Is age a verdict for a woman? Does it mean she can no longer build a relationship as she gets older?
She can build a relationship at any age, but it will be a different kind of relationship. The older one gets, the more one should base a relationship on spiritual closeness rather than physical intimacy. Because sexual drive fades with age. You can't compete with young girls who walk around showing off. You know, I'll tell you one thing, knowledge cannot be received in the heart through a critical attitude. A critical attitude, on the contrary, destroys all faith. If, for example, you want to learn something from me, then try to hear me out. Of course, sometimes this can be painful because personal experience suggests something different. But there are rules that I did not make up. These rules are written in the scriptures and they are laws. They always work and function as they should. But if you start imposing your personal experience as an absolute truth, it destroys the faith of others. It creates an atmosphere in which everything that has been heard loses its power. Try to understand that truth is not born in an argument. It is born from attentive listening. This act of listening is a priceless gift. In exactly the same way as you were just trying to listen to me attentively, at a certain moment doubt arose in your hearts because an argument began. In the same way, I carefully listen to my teacher in order to gain knowledge, but I never argue with him. I try to absorb this knowledge through my ears, to take it in, to feel it, and to understand it. One must ask questions humbly. But if you feel that a person is not qualified, then simply don't listen to them. I'm just saying that sometimes a person lacks qualification and then it's better not to listen. Arguing is pointless. Sometimes people on the internet start criticizing me and begin to criticize every single word I say. Some other people write in my defense, if you don't like this person, don't listen to him, find someone else. Why criticize him? So what if the other person is like that? What's next? Nothing in your life will change because of it. You will never encounter anything new in your life through arguing. If you want to accept the knowledge, accept it. If you don't, look for it elsewhere. Knowledge can only be accepted if one deeply tries to understand it. Arguing does not lead to deep understanding, but humbly asked questions do. It's not that I'm forcing my knowledge on you. I am simply trying to open my heart to you. But when someone punches it with their fist, it becomes much harder to open it. Therefore, let us try to build relationships the right way. This is very important. Relationships must be based on deep feelings. So I am sharing my experience with you, experience that is grounded in the scriptures. The experience is this: love is not infatuation. Love is based on caring for another person, not on enjoying them. What matters more in a relationship is not attachment to a person or the pleasure you get from them, but the fact that you are moving in the same direction in life. What matters most in a person is their purpose and sense of direction. When people go in different directions, it is very painful. Living together becomes very difficult. Therefore, people must always philosophically support the same direction in their lives in order to always be together. This is where you should invest maximum effort, not your sex life, because this is more important. When people move in the same direction, they have mutual understanding, and it extends to all areas of life, from top to bottom. And when people build a family through interaction and conversation, they build it strong, solid, and for life. People who build a family through conversation and mutual understanding do not initially have a strong physical pull between them, because when that pull is too strong, real dialogue becomes impossible, and they end up rushing to bed instead. Therefore, according to the Vedas, intense feelings toward a person are not a favorable sign for starting a family. It is dangerous because animal instincts will play a greater role in the relationship than common sense. But sometimes it can lead to a good outcome if people are able at a certain moment to control these feelings and not let them govern their lives.
And what if one has passion, but the other doesn't?
This is also dangerous. The other one starts to squeeze out feelings. That means that the one with stronger feelings demands feelings from the one whose feelings are weaker. Let me explain this to you now. In relationships between a man and a woman, there is always one who gives and one who receives. Sometimes it is the woman, sometimes the man. It all depends on who has more piety. When a person has more inner purity, they have more good qualities of character and they become loved. The energy of love always comes from a woman. A man always receives it. But when it comes to relationships, sometimes a woman tries to be close to a man because she feels that he is a good person, and the man accepts this relationship. And then he becomes arrogant. A woman pursues the relationship and a man becomes arrogant. Sometimes a man pursues a woman and the woman becomes arrogant. But it always happens that only one person is pursuing the relationship while the other becomes arrogant. Often the person who is pursuing the relationship feels humiliated. They start to think, how unlucky I am. I'm always the one who has to pursue the relationship. You see what I'm talking about? But this changes over time. The person who is pursuing the relationship must become better, must work on themselves. When a person works on themselves, they gradually earn respect and everything changes. In a family, after approximately 5, 6, or 7 years, the dynamic in the relationship reverses, and the person who was being pursued starts pursuing the one who was doing the pursuing. This happens if the relationship is built right. If it is built incorrectly, if people do not work on themselves, it turns into conflict. If one of them starts working on themselves, everything falls into place. If the one being pursued starts working on themselves, everything falls into place instantly. But this is usually not the case. The person who is being pursued always becomes proud. When a person becomes the object of love, they always become proud. This is a problem of the human heart. But when a person pursues a relationship, they always become better. And gradually they begin to attract attention. At some point, the person who was being pursued may do something foolish. But then, if the person who is pursuing the relationship behaves correctly, their relationship may temporarily drift apart somewhat. And then the one who was being pursued starts to feel that this person is very good, that they lost or are losing them, and they restore the relationship, but now from the opposite side. That is why relationships never go in just one direction. If people live right and behave right, the relationship keeps changing. Because when people fully develop their relationship, it becomes balanced, and everything works out well for them.
What if there is a fear of losing a loved one? And is a family possible if the partners have different religions?
The fear of losing a loved one is present. Look, if there is a stable feeling that is overwhelming, it means that this feeling came from a past life. It doesn't mean that you will necessarily lose this person, but by holding on to this fear, you may actually bring this situation upon yourself. To overcome this fear, one must connect with holiness. Prayer is needed. Fear is overcome by purity. As for relationships between people of different religions, that is a complex question. You see, there are 3 types of believers. There are beginning believers, and they are all fanatics. That means that beginning believers think that their faith is better and are always fighting against other religions. There are believers of the middle category. These are the believers who begin to understand that holiness exists everywhere God is present. They also understand that God is not only present in my faith. For example, Orthodox Christians begin to feel that Catholics can also be holy people. For example, Mother Teresa was a Catholic. If a person has reached this level of development in their spiritual life, they begin to feel that whoever is connected to God always becomes a holy person. And if holiness exists, it means God exists. So such people begin to respect the faith found in other religions. And at this level, there are no longer any problems in relationships between people of different religions. They deeply respect each other for their spiritual lives. I know examples of such families.
If one religion is Muslim,
some Muslims respect other religions, others do not. For example, I have an acquaintance, a Muslim woman. I stay at her apartment when I come to give lectures, but I am not a Muslim. She reads the Quran in Arabic, but I am not a Muslim. I come, stay in her apartment, and we are good friends. No problem. Sometimes I stay at the home of an Orthodox family, or they have a large wooden house. Some people say that Orthodox Christians hate other religions. Nothing of the sort. I have many Orthodox friends who respect my faith, but there are those who behave fanatically. Beginning believers, immature ones, are constantly criticizing and finding fault with everyone. If you look at their philosophy, everyone is bad except for them. Such views exist in all traditions. If you take my own spiritual tradition, for example, it's the same thing. There are people who also believe that all people who practice other religions are bad. These are beginners in faith. They are fanatics. At the level of fanaticism, it becomes very difficult for people to live together, because when someone becomes absorbed in a belief, they immediately begin imposing it on everyone close to them. They start to terrorize their loved ones. For them, everyone is bad, everyone is a sinner. They consider themselves saints right away. A person at the initial stage of faith immediately considers themselves a saint. When a person accepts a spiritual tradition, they first become saintly in their relationship with themselves. Then they become believers. Later they become simply ordinary believers. After that they become just ordinary people. Then they begin to see themselves as sinners. And finally they come to see themselves as fallen. But at the very beginning, it always starts with the person seeing themselves as saintly. Since they are saints, everyone else is bad, especially people of other faiths. Just complete sinners, you see? This is a common thing, it always happens this way. A spiritually advanced believer is very humble in their heart. They do not judge anyone. It is better for a family to be united in their spiritual practice. If they are not united in their spiritual practice, and nothing can be changed, then in that case the woman outwardly accepts her husband's religious culture, because it is easier for a woman to adapt to the situation. A man simply cannot do this at all. The woman accepts her husband's religious culture, and at the same time agrees with him that she prays in her own way, while outwardly, for example, she dresses accordingly and goes to the temple with him. She does not cause discomfort to the relatives. This is a complex question. It can only be resolved well by reasonable people. Therefore, it is better to marry someone of your own faith rather than a different one. It's simpler, you see? There won't be any major problems, because first people fall in love, and then it turns out that their relatives are against it. And this is how religious hostility arises, something that eventually breaks people's hearts. I know many examples of people from different spiritual traditions living together wonderfully, without any problems. I know such examples, such families, and they are all doing well. But these are spiritually mature people. I also know examples where people argue intensely, ruin their lives, split up, and hostility begins between them. I know of examples where relatives destroy families because of different religious beliefs. Sometimes relatives even destroy a family simply because, for instance, a person is of different nationality. There can also be national hostility. It is present too. All of this happens. There is nothing you can do about it. This is a sign of people's immaturity and underdevelopment. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Question. One person is trying to develop spiritually, while the other is against it.
Thank you for this question. One person wants to develop spiritually while the other is against spiritual life altogether. What do you think? Can a person truly dislike a sweet taste? You see, there are 6 tastes. Sweet taste means happiness. Sweet taste refers to all the energies of sweetness. Next is the astringent taste. It represents labor, a life of toil, hard work. People work. Sweet taste means love, pure goodness. A life in pure goodness is associated with sweet tastes. Food in pure goodness also has many sweet flavors. Sweet taste is the taste of pure goodness. A person cannot help but love the sweet taste, but when they have incorrect ideas about life, they sometimes prefer a different taste. For example, people who drink alcohol, what is their primary taste? Bitter. Bitter is the most degradation-associated taste. Sweet taste is the most pure goodness. Next comes the astringent taste. This is the taste of labor. When people work hard, they tend to prefer astringent foods, dark bread and foods that give strength. The astringent taste gives strength. What taste comes next? Sour. Sour means emotions, feelings. Grievances start to appear. When people live in passion, their life turns sour. They often take offense and quarrel with each other. They have a sour life. What taste comes after sour? Salty taste. Salty means intense tension. Salty taste comes after a stringent one. Salty means great tension, a very tense life. Salty means very strong tension. When people eat salty food, they are under great tension in life, so what comes after a life of tension? People break down. They lead a sour life. They've been pushed to the breaking point. They break down. A sour life begins. Next comes a spicy taste. A spicy taste means an attempt to still enjoy oneself somehow. Passion. What comes next? Bitter taste. And what does bitter mean? Degradation. What taste does vodka have? Bitter. What taste does a cigarette have? Bitter. So can you drink vodka with ice cream or not, since it has a sweet taste? No. What flavor do people drink vodka with? With salty, sour, or that same bitter taste? It often happens that people don't like the sweet taste. It means they haven't really tasted it yet. A person can never refuse happiness. No one can reject the beauty of nature or the beauty itself. It all has a sweet taste. When a person begins to engage in spiritual practice, they become sweet. But at first, this is irritating. People who are used to bitter tastes find this irritating. You need to nurture them, but very gently, imperceptibly. You simply need to quietly practice your spiritual life within your own heart. Spiritual practice does not mean putting speakers out on the street and turning on spiritual music. That is not a spiritual practice. Spiritual practice means something that lives in the heart. It is a matter of the soul. If a person lives a spiritual life in their heart, gradually the atmosphere in the apartment fills with sweetness and purity. This sweetness attracts everyone. A pure, radiant person is always attractive, right? They cannot be unattractive. But at first it feels unfamiliar. Then it gradually becomes familiar. I have been studying the topic of spiritual life for 20 years now, and over these 20 years, major changes have occurred in my relationships with the people who are close to me. For example, my mother initially decided that I had lost my mind. I was very young at the time, 18 years old. I began exploring various spiritual paths, searching for myself on spiritual level. Naturally, I started living in ways that seemed unusual to others. I practiced cold water exposure, fasting, and other forms of self-discipline. I was working on myself in different ways. I also practiced meditation and some other techniques. And my mother thought I was developing a mental disorder. She took me to a psychiatrist. At the time, I was practicing dream visualization, trying to become conscious within my dreams. The psychiatrist asked me, "Do you have colorful dreams?" I replied, "Almost." Everyone understood the answer in their own way. So the doctor wrote down a diagnosis of schizophrenia for me. At that time, I was applying to medical school. And with such a diagnosis, they are not supposed to admit one to medical school, so a problem arose. On the one hand, I was a normal young man who wanted to study medicine. On the other hand, with that diagnosis, they no longer wanted to accept me. My mother had created a problem for herself, and then she had to solve it herself. She found another psychiatrist. He talked with me and said, "He's a normal young man. He is just working on himself and studying something." He then referred me to a psychiatric hospital. I went there and his friend was there. We talked with him as well. Everything was fine. His verdict was that I was a normal person, completely normal. He said, "Go ahead and apply to medical school. Don't go sharing all these personal revelations with anyone else. What you feel there and understand, that is the subtle inner world, and not everyone needs to hear about it. You are fine." But at first my mom didn't believe it. The diagnosis was removed, but she still had her doubts. She would watch me. Sometimes I was silent all day, sometimes I was fasting. She felt that something strange was happening with her child. Now my mother herself reads prayers and attends my spiritual festivals, the Good People Club Festival. We have a festival by the sea. People gain a lot there. They come, they learn how to build relationships, how to practice correctly. There is yoga, pranayama, qigong, and Eastern dances, many different things. In the evenings, there are concerts. She comes too, and she really likes it. My wife's mother also practices prayer. Everyone enjoys it very much. And finally, my father quit drinking because his liver can no longer cope. "I can't anymore," he says. "I just can't drink anymore." So everything is getting better. But at first, the very first thing that arises in people is fear. You see, the mind of people who live in passion is very rigid. People live in society and are very afraid of change. There are fate-defining and fate-changing things. For example, food. For instance, whether a person eats apples or not does not concern anyone. Suppose a person doesn't eat apples. Nobody will ask, "What, you don't eat apples?" Nobody will ask. There's no problem with apples. But if a person suddenly stops eating meat, that is different. Meat is connected to one's fate. When a person stops eating meat, their life becomes much more elevated and filled with pure goodness. This is because when an animal is killed violently, the subtle energy body of the animal remains connected to the physical body. When a person eats meat, they become miserable, because this energy of violence affects them. They receive the results of that kind of food. This is a subtle matter and difficult to understand. For example, when Leo Tolstoy was asked why he didn't eat meat, he said, "This is not a question of healthy nutrition, it is a question of one's view of life. I can feel how it affects my consciousness, and that is why I do not eat it." For the same reason Einstein did not eat meat. For the same reason Leonardo da Vinci did not eat meat, and so on. You see, educated people, thinkers and scientists understand how it affects the mind, and that is why they do not eat it. I myself haven't eaten it for 20 years. And there is no need to force anything. A person eats what they want to eat to sustain their life. Everything changes naturally. Why does a person eat meat? Because in ordinary life, a person needs the emotion of aggression in order to win. A person lives by conquering this world. This world can be conquered through force, so people usually live under great tension. For such a tense life and for victories, meat is necessary. If a person does not eat meat, they feel they lack the strength to fight. They say, "I feel weak. I cannot fight for my own fate." People in passion need meat because they are fighting for their fate. But when a person begins to win through love, when the energy of love becomes the main force in their life, instead of the energy of violence, meat becomes foreign to them. They no longer desire that food. It becomes unpleasant. This happens as a result of personal growth and knowledge. There is no need to change anything artificially. One should simply live as one lives and develop as a person. So people in passion have a very static, rigid mind. If you tell a person living in passion that you don't eat meat, they will get scared. For example, you tell a colleague, "I don't eat meat." They respond, "What's wrong with you?" But if you say, "I don't eat apples," they won't react at all. Or you say that you don't eat yogurt. No problem. But the phrase, "I don't eat meat," is dangerous because it implies a change in consciousness, although it seems like the same thing. Anything that strongly changes the mind causes fear in society. People become afraid when you make such choices. For example, if you say you don't drink apple juice, there's no problem. If you say you don't drink grape juice, no problem. But if there's a dinner party and you say, "I don't drink alcohol," instantly there is tension, an awkward silence. They start telling you, "Drink just a little bit," out of politeness. No. Do you respect us or not? Who are you? Do you respect us or not? Don't you respect our community? You don't respect us, do you? Right? Do you understand what I mean? That means that alcohol is also a force that changes one's fate. That is why in a society with a static and rigid mindset, people are afraid to abstain from drinking. You have to drink a little just to be polite. I was once invited to appear on television. An assistant who works there came up to me. I was a guest there, an invited guest. She asked, "Coffee, tea, wine?" I said, "Hot water." She looked surprised and said, "What, you don't drink coffee, tea, or wine?" I replied, "No, I just drink hot water." She went, "Phew," and she went off to get me the hot water.
What about green tea?
Am I against green tea? I'm not against green tea. It's not beneficial because it contains caffeine. And black tea contains LSD. Do you know what LSD is? A substance that causes hallucinations. If you eat lamb and have it with salted fish, then drinking black tea afterward is no problem. So it is important to understand that there are different levels of personal development. At a certain level, a person gives up what no longer helps them in life. All right, let's stop here. You are moving too fast. I can't keep up. Understand that my goal is simply to encourage you to grow. My point is this: family relationships cannot be good if people don't work on themselves. This is the first step toward a proper life. And from there, everything depends on your own abilities. When a person embarks on the path of pure goodness, their mindset begins to change. This frightens everyone. That is why there's no need to scare your close relatives. For example, people may ask you, "So you don't eat meat?" Simply reply, "I do, I eat it, but less. At least today I don't eat it."
Dr. Torsunov, what if a person is put in a situation where they didn't eat meat, but then had to?
Who had to?
My son didn't eat meat or fish. He had been a vegetarian for many years. Then he was drafted into the army, and there he had to eat meat.
There's nothing terrible about that. After the army, he won't eat it again.
But the thing is, he didn't eat meat there. He mostly ate porridge and simple foods. After that, he became ill and then spent several months in the hospital.
Did he get sick because of the porridge?
No, of course not. He had other diagnoses. But he became seriously ill because he had heavy physical workloads, and without meat, he could not cope.
You are absolutely right. This is a common misconception among people who simply don't understand. Attachment to meat gives rise to the idea that it's impossible to live without it, that when there are heavy physical demands, meat is necessary. That's correct. That without meat, one cannot endure heavy physical loads. Most people hold this misconception, and it is rooted in a certain philosophy. There are also various academic works claiming that there are essential amino acids. But this idea was disproven 40 or even 30 years ago. In 79, this theory was completely dismantled. There was a theory that meat contains essential amino acids. When scientists began to deeply study the chemical composition of foods, they found all those so-called essential amino acids in other products as well. Moreover, it turned out that the body can actually synthesize them on its own. I can give you thousands of examples of this. In Africa, there are tribes that eat almost nothing but coconuts. People are nearly 2 meters tall. They have no diseases, their teeth don't fall out, their bones don't weaken, there's no rickets. They are strong, healthy, muscular men, living almost entirely on coconuts. I have several friends who don't even eat dairy products. They eat only raw food and feel wonderful. Strong, healthy people. Do I look malnourished to you? No? Do you sense any degeneration? I look like a normal man, at the peak of my strength. I haven't eaten meat for 20 years now. And all my friends and everyone around me doesn't eat meat. My relatives do not eat meat. My friends do not eat meat. Everyone around me does not eat meat. Because it is a certain culture. And this culture is very contagious. When people feel healthy and happy, they really want to live. I ate meat until I was 23. At that time, I suffered from asthma and had trouble breathing, even though I was constantly doing sports. I had gastritis with high acidity. I had allergies and a tendency towards skin diseases. My skin was constantly itching and various eczemas kept breaking out. When I gave up meat, all of that disappeared forever. I never had trouble breathing again, never had gastritis again, and my skin never had any issues again. I simply forgot about those things. I forgot what illness is. I hardly ever get sick now. I feel fine all the time. A question: what if several men are courting a woman at the same time? We have shifted the topic to family relationships. Several young men are courting a woman. That's great. A woman's psyche is structured in such a way that she does not fall in love right away. She feels sympathy first. This is what most women usually do. A woman does not fall in love right away. She sympathizes. If a woman falls in love quickly, something has gone wrong. It means she did not restrain her feelings because the man should be the one to pursue first. A woman should not fall in love. Otherwise, most often, it will turn into unhappy love. If a woman falls in love and the man shows no signs of interest or attraction, that's it. It's a lost cause. A woman should not let her feelings come too close too quickly. She should give the man encouragement through her gaze, give him happiness in this way, but not let him too deeply into her heart at the beginning. First, she should study the person and get to know him. She should not give her feelings to someone right away. He may never even want to pursue her. So you are doing everything correctly. Several young men are courting you at the same time. How do you make a choice? First, spirituality. This is the most important thing. You need to see who among them strives for self-improvement. Let them all listen to my lectures. Or lectures of other people who encourage personal growth. The one who agrees to listen deserves your attention. Men cannot become deeply interested in lectures right away. If he agreed to listen at all, that's already a good sign. They cannot become strongly interested right away. Men often need a little push and then they go on their own. The key thing is that there is somewhere to push him toward. If there is no direction in which to push, if he is closed off to growth, then pushing is pointless. People need to move in the same direction like swans swimming in one direction. People should also move in the same direction. Swans don't look at each other, they swim together, you see? That is true love, when people swim in the same direction together. Crows, on the other hand, look at each other, start cawing, and then feathers start flying. So first, check the person's intelligence. If a person is inclined toward improvement, it means his is strong in terms of his intelligence. A man must have a strong intelligence. Second, maturity. Young men may or may not have the strength to create a family. A woman matures faster. At 18, a girl is usually ready to create a family. Most often this is the case. Sometimes there are underdeveloped women who are afraid. But in general, at 18, a woman is ready to start a family. A young man, however, may not be ready even at 25. Readiness to create a family does not mean physical maturity. Readiness to start a family means that he can tolerate a woman next to him, care for her, work for her, and provide for her. That means he is capable of giving of himself. Often young men just want pleasure. They enjoy themselves and then discard the woman. That does not mean maturity. A mature man wants to care for a woman, take responsibility, marry her, not abandon her. That is a mature, developed person. Maturity manifests in simple ways. Watch whether a man keeps his word. Watch how he handles your emotions. For example, throw a little tantrum and watch his reaction. If he tolerates it, that means he is strong. It's a good sign. Give him a plus. Try it with the next one. If he can't tolerate it, give that one a minus. And that's how you gradually make your choice. 2 pluses, he's getting closer. 2 minuses, he is further away. Test him. Arrive a little late to the date and watch. If he is already standing there waiting, that's a plus. He's a responsible person. If he's late, that's a minus. And if he's very late, just leave. Let him be disappointed. If he later says, "Why didn't you come?" you say, "I came, but you weren't there." He will reply, "I was 5 minutes late." Well, that's your problem. Don't rush. Having an elder or a mentor helps greatly in choosing. If a person has a mentor, that means they are mature. Ordinary people usually do not have mentors. That means their intelligence is not strong. People with strong intelligence always have a mentor. Why does a person not have a mentor? Because they consider themselves their own mentors. If I am my own mentor, that means I am in passion. People in pure goodness are able to submit themselves to someone wiser and seek advice. That means their intelligence has begun to develop. A person with developing intelligence is humble. A person with undeveloped intelligence is proud. You need to learn to listen to wise persons. At least start by taking someone's advice in life. Study and search. This is your life, your whole life. Parents can be mentors, but not always. If they work on themselves, they can be mentors. Often parents give the wrong advice. But if the parents have an honest heart, they will be able to read a person. If you feel your parents are developed, ask them. Show them a photo of the candidate and ask, "Mom, what kind of life do you think I would have with this person? Because your karma is similar to your mother's. She has already lived through this. She has seen all these faces before. She has already been through this. She will give you good advice." Sometimes you need to listen to your mother. That's the right thing to do.
What if there is a man, but I haven't met him yet?
What do you mean you haven't met him yet? Very often women don't ask the question they actually want to ask. You see, the real problem isn't that your relationships are somehow wrong. You are afraid right now. There is fear in your heart, a fear of relationships. You were very faithful and deeply attached to the person you had before. When everything collapsed, you became very frightened. A fear of men appeared. And now, when someone has come into your life, you are simply scared. You are afraid that he will abandon you as well.
But I was the one who left the man.
You were the one who left? Well, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you have fear in your heart. Do you agree with me?
I agree.
Fear is overcome through spiritual strength. This doesn't depend on the relationship. You can see that in general things are going well in your relationship. And yet you are still afraid. And you ask, how can I build a better relationship so that I won't be afraid? But this fear does not depend on the relationship. It is simply your past experience. This is your past experience. And past experience can only be overcome through spiritual life. Relationships have nothing to do with it. What is needed is prayer, so that the heart can calm down. Now I want to tell you the most important thing before we finish, something that will truly help in your personal life. It will help a great deal. Look at how people usually behave when they face difficulties. They try to solve everything directly through relationships. And this always leads to failure. Because relationships live in the heart. Now I'm going to say something very important. Everyone listen carefully. It is difficult to understand, but once you understand it, everything will fall into place. All of a person's relatives, who are they? They are those who live in the heart. The heart means the soul. The soul is connected by invisible threads to all close people. When something bad happens to a loved one, the heart hurts. What happens at that moment? My energy of happiness flows to that person. So we don't worry too much about this. Everything happens by itself. If a child is in danger, energy to help the child immediately flows from the mother's heart. Therefore, there is no need to focus on trying to help someone directly. What matters is focusing on increasing that inner strength in the heart, the strength that helps. Because help will always come to everyone naturally. For example, suppose a husband starts experiencing stress. Why is his wife unable to protect him? Because there isn't enough strength. A person should care only about one thing, that their inner strength is always replenished. This can be compared to lakes. If there is a large lake, there are often smaller lakes nearby. They are always filled with water when the large lake is full. So there is no need to worry about filling the small lakes. You should focus on keeping the large lake full. When a person prays, when they think about holiness, the lake of their heart fills with strength. Inside, the person becomes very strong, happy, and joyful. And this naturally supports all kinds of relationships. Naturally, the husband becomes more dignified. He doesn't feel like leaving. Naturally, children become protected. Naturally, parents become healthier. All of this happens by itself. There is no need to make special efforts directed at any particular person. For example, someone prays for another person and asks, Dr. Torsunov, how should I pray for this person so that it helps them? There is no need to pray for the person. The person will draw strength from you naturally. Instead, think about a holy person. I want to serve you. I want to think about you. I want to feel your holiness, your purity. In this life, all I lack is the knowledge of this purity and power of holy, divine people. The moment a person begins to feel this knowledge and purity in their heart, help immediately comes to those who need it. This also applies to those relatives who have passed away. Since no one truly dies, they continue to live just in a different world. First on the subtle energy plane, then on the physical plane. They remain near us. The connection remains. That is why there is a heaviness in the heart. The departed relative seems to pull at us. Why is that? Why does it feel so heavy when someone close passes away? Because they need strength, they need help. When you begin to fill the lake of your heart with purity and strength, your heart begins to feel good. And that means that your relative is now fine as well over there. They no longer need your strength. They are very grateful to you. Who has already experienced this? Please raise your hand. You see, there are people who have already followed this advice. So the main law of family life is this. When things become difficult, when it becomes hard, do not try to restore the relationship with words. Restore them in your heart. When everything is restored in the heart, the words will improve on their own. Because words always reflect what is in the heart. Most people have no real relationship in their hearts with their loved ones, because in their hearts they always want something from that person. Now look into your own heart. It is dissatisfied with the close person. Why? Because it always wants something from them. The soul must work hard, you see. We must learn to give. We must give, not demand for ourselves. When a person gives, they themselves become fulfilled, and they fulfill others as well. But in order to give, one must make an effort. People usually don't want to make this effort at first, but once they get used to it, it becomes the foundation of their life. Who among you yesterday, after we repeated, I wish everyone happiness, felt strength arise in your heart? Please raise your hand. That is what true luck is. That is the power that shapes your entire destiny. What I am saying right now is my absolute conviction. I am completely convinced of this because I have lived this way for many years. Act in this direction. Why do we repeat, I wish everyone happiness? Because everyone has their own faith, and these are moral lectures. The lectures are aimed at elevating a person's inner culture. These lectures treat every religion and every faith with great tact and respect. That is why, in such lectures, we repeat something that is acceptable to people of any spiritual tradition. Everyone wants people to be happy. We repeat, I wish everyone happiness, and we think of a holy person within our own faith. Recall the holiness of your own faith. For Muslims, for example, one recalls not a person but the name of God or the sacred scriptures. The same result is achieved. You can also recall the image of the Virgin Mary, for example, or Jesus Christ. Each tradition has its own way of connecting with spiritual power. Without this connection, a person cannot be happy in this life. Because we are not sources of happiness, we are in need of happiness. If you interact with purity and fill yourself with happiness from within, you will have a happy family life. There is only one way. Most people expect happiness to come from another person. This is impossible. It is complete nonsense. If you give happiness, less comes back than you give, but still enough to be happy. It never comes back in equal measure. But when you attune yourself to God, you receive far more than you ever expected in your life. This is how a person should live. We are selfish by nature, so our mutual exchange of happiness is limited. But when a person fills themselves with gratitude, they give a lot. That will be enough for life. That is why we must first strive to fill ourselves with pure, bright strength and inner life, and only then give to our loved ones. This makes it possible to build deep relationships that truly bring harmony in all respects, in every aspect of life, including in the intimate aspect. There will be harmony in all respects. This is guaranteed. With a good person, everything is good, everything is fine. There is harmony everywhere. If you do not have this harmony, it means there was no spiritual life in its true sense. Spiritual life is not about bowing to icons or going to church. Spiritual life is inner life. Often people go to church and perform various external spiritual actions, but there is nothing in their hearts. Once I visited a holy place, entered the temple, bowed, and left. Later I thought, did I actually bow or not? A bow must come from the heart. It must happen in the heart. If you first bow in your heart, then you never forget it. Spiritual life takes place in the heart. You may go to church and it is better to go. You may not go. Sometimes a person serves God more in their heart than someone who attended a service. Do you understand what I'm saying? Spiritual life flows very deep inside a person, inside. And then family life becomes indestructible. It is impossible to destroy a relationship if a person is nourished by a true source. Relationships become brighter and brighter. It cannot be that a person who lives next to you is a stranger. Souls are never strangers if they come to know each other as souls. Take a small child who needs you. Could this child ever be a stranger to you? Take any small child, any infant who desperately needs you. Could that child ever become a stranger to you? Within a month, the child will become your own. Because you will see a soul in the child, and the child will see a soul in you. This is exactly how people should live with one another. Soul to soul, you see. Not body to body, but soul to soul. We must live soul to soul, and then everything will be good in every respect. I hope I have fulfilled my duty to you. I hope something has become clear. I truly hope I did not come here in vain, that something has happened in your hearts, that something has changed.